now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Well, folks, we're hearing a lot of what's happening in the government today, and let me tell you, this is a special Sam Lesante Show, a 1-hour special. Folks, you'll never guess who I have out on the show today. We have two congressmen. One congressman you've seen on the show many times, but I'm very happy and thrilled and honored to have Congressman Mike Kelly on the show, along with Congressman Lou Barletta. Mike comes from the 3rd Congressional District and of the Western Pennsylvania. Folks, you got to Google him, and you got to listen to many of the speeches he had to say, along with Lou. It's quite interesting, and that's why I saw him on Fox, and I said, we got to get him on the Sam Lesante Show because he really impressed me. And I think you'll be impressed when you hear what he has to say, along with Congressman Barletta. And so I contacted Congressman Barletta, and I said, you know Mike Kelly? He said, yes, I do. I said, I'd love to have him on the show, and here he is today. Congressman, thanks for coming on the show.
Sam, thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Lou, it's always nice to see you.
Always nice to see you, Sam.
I got to tell you, Lou, thanks for doing this. You've been on Face the Nation, you've been on Fox, you've been on a number of things. Now you're on the best show, the Sam Lesante
Agreed.
Show. Not that I'm, a lot of people, let me ask you this. You don't mind to call you Mike, right?
No, please.
Because when I said that to Lou, could I call him Lou? He said, no, call me Congressman Barletta. And then I have to bow and all this stuff. This is ridiculous. No, I'm only kidding. Are you proud to be a U.S. Congressman?
Absolutely. It's a great honor and a privilege. I think the biggest part of it is you get to understand, and especially at my age, at 65, I have a lot different perspective than I would have had at maybe 25 as to what my role would be and what kind of a job I could do. But when the people that you live with, you've grown up with, you work with, say, we'd like you to go and represent us in Washington, D.C., take our voice to Washington, let them know how we feel back here in Pennsylvania, it's a great honor. So yeah, it really is. It's a pleasure and an extreme, and I mean this, it really is an honor to serve.
Lou, how about you?
Well, there's no question, Sam. If you look in history, I think it's less than 12,000 individuals had the opportunity, men and women, had the opportunity to serve in the United States Congress. So it's a privilege that I take very seriously and an honor, again, to represent the people back home in Washington, but realize that what they're entrusting us to do. It's a great country, and to serve in the time that we have there is an incredible privilege.
The reason I asked that question is because, Congress has probably one of the lowest approval ratings, okay, in the country today, and people become discouraged. It's the fighting, it's everything is, and sometimes you say, well, you're trying your best, okay, but being a Republican, okay, going on your 3rd year, correct? You were assumed office 2011, along the same time with you, Lou, right? When you went, you had to have a reason that you wanted to go to Congress.
Sure.
Okay. I remember speaking to Lou Barletta one day on the phone, and he says, Sammy, he says, I have trouble going to sleep at night when I see what is going on in this country. And I know Lou, since he was the mayor of Hazleton, and I felt the pain in his voice, as to, what is going on. So when you went to Congress, okay, and you're privy to things that we are not privy to, of course, and things you'll probably may have to take to your grave. I have no idea. How is that encounter? Because you have a great dealership, et cetera. How was that?
Well, first of all, my parents, and anytime I talk to my friends I grew up with, there's one thing that we all agree on. We grew up in the best towns, the best times, with the best parents, preachers, teachers, grandmas and grandpas. Our families were the most important thing to us. Our communities were the most important things to us. And then all of a sudden, as you get older, you're watching and say, wait, this isn't the way I grew up. Something's changing here. Something's odd here. Something needs to be done. Now, I know when I used to talk to my dad about it, and we had him up to the time, he was just 2 months shy of his 90th when he transitioned. But I remember talking to him about how hard it was. He was one of 9. My grandpa was a conductor on the B&O Railroad. They never had enough to eat. The only person that ever got a new coat, new shoes, new shirt was the oldest brother, and it all got handed down. Now, they had enough to eat, but never too much to eat. In the summertime, my grandparents would send my dad and his brothers and sisters up into the country where the other families, as the rest of our relatives lived, that had farms. They would work up in that area. And I said to my dad, I said, my gosh, Dad, we would drive towards the end of his life, would take one day a week, and I'd just take him anywhere he wanted to go. We're talking about when he grew up during the recession. We're talking about the depression, how tough it was in depression. There wasn't enough food, there weren't jobs, getting farmed out in the summertime, coming back home, working as a parts picker in a Chevrolet warehouse. The war comes on, and he goes off and he fights in a war. He comes back home, goes back to work for Chevrolet, and then starts his family business in 1953. Little one-car showroom in a little small town called Verona. And I asked him as we're talking, I said, Dad, geez, how did you do it? It must have been tough. Now, this is an 89-year-old man. He's sitting across me. He looked over at me and said, what did you just ask me? I said, how did you do it? I mean, it was so tough. He goes, it wasn't an option. We had to do it. Everybody was in the same boat. He said, you kids have had it too darn good for too long. There's going to come a day that you're going to be asked to do something. You're going to have to rise up, and you're going to have to go do your part. You may not like it, but you're going to have to do it, because if you don't, the country won't stand. And I think for guys like Lou and I, that time came a couple years ago when we saw what was happening. One of our dealerships was taken away from us, not because we couldn't run it, not because we weren't profitable. When General Motors got the bailout from the government, the board of directors also then got to be appointed by the administration. They decided that certain dealerships are going to be eliminated. The dealership that my dad started and I had bought from him was one of those dealerships that was being taken away. At that time, we decided to go and fight. We went to arbitration. We won the arbitration. And when it was over, my family said, you know, you've got such a passion for this now. Maybe you need to do something else. I said, are you kidding me? Come on. I'm an automobile dealer. I love living in Butler. I love doing things in my community. But then the call comes out to you and you say, you know what? There's more to be done. And we have to have more people coming from the private sector going and serving for a period of time, not forever. Mm-hmm. Not supposed to be a career. Yeah. It's supposed to be a service. So that's how I got involved in it. And I think, well, you know, Lou and I hang out a lot together in Congress. Tommy Marino, we have the same basic values. And we talk about things all the time. And I think what we're able to do is we're able to keep each other pumped up, and we're able to take that message from back home to Washington and say, no. We don't need anybody in Washington, D.C. telling us how to live in Pennsylvania. We'll do it. We're going to flip it on you. We're going to do it the way the founders decided it should be done. So we go there and we take that message.
I think you've said that almost every time you come on the show.
It was, Sam. You know, I ran 3 times for Congress, and after the second time, I decided that was enough. I wasn't going to put my family through, the campaigns, and it's easy for you as a candidate, but it's not easy for the family. But God had a different plan for me, Sam. Right after that second election, I became a grandfather to my first grandson, Gabriel Lewis. And, I looked at Gabriel and wondered, what kind of America will he grow up in? What kind of opportunities will he have? And, I thought about it, Sammy, is that every generation since this country was founded has left the next generation a better opportunity in life. Our grandparents, we all heard the stories of they came to America with nothing. They had 2 options. They worked or they starved. But they worked so that our parents and their generation could have a better life. We heard the stories of our parents, of what they did, as Mike just described. And they did it so that we can have a better life. We could be the first generation since this country was founded that won't leave the next generation a better opportunity in life. And I just couldn't sit back and do nothing about that.
And with that being said, okay, this is where, we have as we see what's happening in the country today. And there's so many things that I want to discuss, and I don't want to be biased, okay, but you had a business. Okay, you have a business, so now it's on, you can't run it, right? And same, Lou has a business. You hired people, you know what it is to keep people, working and putting salary to provide for their families. Now we're in a situation, I have a business here, and you feel like, well, maybe the government or the state, not that you want anything for nothing, believe me, we don't want anything for nothing, but to help small businesses so they could thrive and we can keep people employed. Until you lose your job, until you get put on part-time, until you cannot get insurance, until you see these things happening, then you say, well, wait a minute. Like the person in Santa Barbara who opened up her insurance bill and says, wait, I used to laugh at Boehner. I'm not laughing at him anymore. My insurance policy is now $10,000 a year, and we have all these horror stories. But I want to stay in an area where, Mike, you have received many standing ovations, as well as Lou, what you had to say. when we talk about the Obamacare, okay, one of the things that people have a feeling of, not too much maybe in my area, maybe so, but doesn't come to me, is that you Republicans, you're only for rich people. You don't care about the families. You don't care about these people who have pre-existing conditions. You don't care about minimum wage. You don't care about these people who have to. All you're worried about is, you know, the Republicans are for the rich people. They could care less about. But Obama, he's for all the poor people. He wants to make sure they have this. He wants to make sure they have that. Okay. Congressman Kelly, true or false?
The perception?
Yeah.
I think the perception has been the marketing of it and the messaging. The president's used that now from the time he started running till now. He still continues to be the great divider. He loves separating. Now, this is a man. If you're looking at his resume, you'd be hard put to say. I think, you know, looking at his prior body of work, he's a guy that should be the chief executive officer of the biggest company the world has ever known. No experience for doing that. Now, he's able to message. He's able to say some things that get to people's heartstrings. But the truth of the matter is, since the president has been in office, the people who have been hurt the most are lower income families, middle income families, and lower middle income families. Those are the people that have paid the greatest price. And I look at that and I say, you know, if you could just look at the facts, get away from all the gyrations and all the great speeches of the way the president talks. Has he actually done what he said he was going to do? And the answer is, no, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. Especially for black Americans. There are far more of them unemployed today than when the president took office. He ran on hope and change. Nothing's changed, and these people are now having more hopeless nights than they ever had. He could bring people together. He could unite, but he's not doing that. He's continuing to divide. It's a man who loves running for office, but does not like running the country. And so I would just say to people that listen, you can put people in boxes. You can label them and say, no, this is all Republicans care about. I said, I don't know of anybody that we serve with on either side of the aisle, by the way, that says, you know, we don't want to help people. We want to help the most vulnerable. We want to take care of people with pre-existing. We want to make sure that we do some things to change the health system so that everybody has better access and it's more affordable. But the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, the Obamacare, has never been about improving health care. It is about insurance and having a single provider, and that provider being the U.S. government. I just don't think that the government, military, yes, but doing big things, they don't do big things very well. I would just suggest that what we have, the American Health Care Reform Act, addresses all those things. And one of the things it addresses, the rising cost of health care. People keep talking about, it's going up, it's going up. I said, geez, would tort reform be an important part of that? Absolutely, tort reform would be a part of it. It was never part of Obamacare, never addressed. Republicans, I think, are just like any other Americans. We want to take care of the most vulnerable. We want to help those who need help the most. But by the same token, we realize somebody's got to pick up the tab on this. We've got to be able to turn this economy around. It has got to be robust. It's got to be thriving. It's the only way. It's got to be dynamic. We've got to get people back to work, and we've got to get families stronger. If we don't have strong families, Sam, you're not going to have strong communities. You're not going to have strong state. You're not going to have a strong country. It does come down to the family. What we all talked about, you with your family, me with mine, Louis with his, all of us as Americans, what really was the springboard for us, we had strong families. Now we're breaking families down and making them dependent on a government for a program that may or may not be sustainable. And yet we're telling people, oh, no, don't worry, we'll be there for you. Well, we'll only be there for you if the private sector is doing well. We've got to do things that make sense. Pro-growth tax reform, looking at regulations that really serve no good purpose. The intentions may have been good, but the outcomes are horrible on the driving the cost of things up. Listen, these are not hard things to figure out. And I always tell people, look, this is kitchen table economics. I can remember my grandmother, with her head in her hands, used to sit down and try to figure out how they were going to pay the different people. My mom and dad did the same thing. The things that we wanted to do and say, we can't do them right now, there's just not enough money to do it. But if we work hard, we save, we'll get there. So I just think it's a return to common sense. We need to get away from this rhetoric of dividing people and saying it's about the 1% not paying their fair share and not taking care of the 99%. It's about those who have not wanting to take care of those who do not have. It's not about that at all. It's about America, making America strong. Keeping America's promise goes back to day one. We told, bring everybody, come here. You're going to have the opportunity. May not have the same outcome, but you're going to have an equal opportunity. If we could stay with that message and stop dividing us as a people, then we win.
So, Congressman Kelly, you have no prejudices, correct?
No, I mean...
All right. So therefore, as I said to you before, what I hear is that we have a plan. Okay, the Republicans have a plan. And I listened to the president a number of times, and maybe I missed some place where he says, hey, if you have something, better come and give it to me. Okay? Has the Republican give him that plan, Lou, that you guys presented?
Absolutely, Sam. We talk about it all the time. It's things that we haven't even tried yet. You don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And just to go back for a second and touch on what Mike just said, you can't lift people out of poverty by making them more dependent on government. That's not the way you lift people out of poverty. You can't lift somebody out of the cellar by throwing rocks to the people on the top floor. You have to elevate them back up so that they can live on the top floor. And that's what we're all about, is opportunity, giving people an opportunity for a better life, not to keep you status quo. And that's really what this is all about, where we have a government and an administration now that says, listen, we want to keep you right where you're at. And we'll keep just giving you enough just to get by. We have different ideas, is to lift them up. And there's some of the ideas that Mike has talked about. Yes, we have an alternative plan we want to improve people's health care. We want to make it more accessible. You know how you make it more accessible? You make it more affordable. If you make it more affordable, then people are going to have more access and better health care. We have many ideas, Sam. Allow people to shop across state lines. We talk about it all the time. You and I talk about competition, how it makes you stronger and better. What could be better than allow people to shop? You want an insurance plan? Allow us to go around the country and look at plans like that. Allow small businesses to come together, to join together so that they could go out and shop for the same plan that big corporations can get and get the same type of deals. Health savings plans. Listen, we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are some good ideas in the Affordable Care Act. We want to leave our children, make sure they're protected till they're 26, because many times they don't get a job until they're in their late 20s. Catastrophic coverage. We want to make sure people are covered with pre-existing conditions, and we can do that. But I don't believe the government taking over this health care plan, they can't even roll it out, Sam, on a website. If you can't create a website, how in God's name are they going to be able to run our health care system?
Folks, I'm talking to Congressman Mike Kelly, who is from the 3rd Congressional District, and Congressman Lou Barletta, the 11th Congressional District. You've seen Lou and Mike on many national television shows. We come back, I want to talk a little bit more about this patient-centered alternative to Obamacare. I want to talk about Benghazi. And well, you know what, folks, I really want to talk about the media. I want to talk about the media. Because I don't know about you, but when I watch some of those late night news shows, ABC, CBS, and NBC, I literally want to throw up. And I'll tell you why when we come back after this message. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show. This is an hour special, folks. My guest, Congressman Mike Kelly from the 3rd Congressional District and Lou Barletta from the 11th Congressional District. Remember, 24/7, you can watch any of our shows. And my email is sam@ssptv.com. I highly suggest, folks, that you Google Congressman Mike Kelly and also Google Congressman Lou Barletta. Go to their websites and you'll learn a lot more. I was impressed when I heard Mike Kelly on Fox, as well as on Face the Nation, and talking about different things. Now, before we get to the House Committee on Ways and Means, which you're on, you talked about patient-centered alternative to Obamacare. Now, I want to repeat, because as people go through the channels, here again, maybe the feeling out there is that Republicans do not care about pre-existing conditions. They don't care about, that's the image that sometimes the Democrats may put on for the Republicans. How do you really feel about those things? And what is this patient-centered alternative to Obamacare?
Yeah, well, ours is called the American Health Care Reform Act.
Yeah.
I think the difference with ours is we actually have, I think, about 37 or 38 doctors in our conference, Republicans serving in Congress right now. This is a piece that was put together with providers, people that actually provide the service. Now, the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, was not done by that. It was done by their staffs doing it, and as Ms. Pelosi said, well, we have to pass it so we can find out what's in it. So 2,000 some pages of legislation with about 20,000 pages of regulations, and they're still writing the regulations. You say to yourself, well, my goodness, this is no way to run a railroad. Our alternative is let's make sure that the patient is the center of what we're talking about. Let's make sure that if you have a problem, you can sit down with your wife, your family, and your doctor and determine what's the best course of action for you. Why should you ever give that over to 15 unelected bureaucrats who are going to make decisions on what Sam gets as far as his health is concerned? Mike Kelly, well, he's getting a little bit old now. He's not going to have some of those same things that a younger person would have. So, Mike, you go to the end of the line. We get somebody else to take care of it. That's the way it's set up. It was never centered on what it was supposed to be, patient protection, affordable care. It was never centered on that. It was about insurance that's not available to people, and they're having a hard time getting it. Sam, if it was about health care, then look at our plan, because our plan is about health care. It's about taking care of the most vulnerable. It's talking about taking care of seniors. It's talking about taking care of people who really can't take care of themselves, and it's keeping that doctor-patient relationship that I think all of us think is one of the most important relationships we have in our lives. It just is. Now, Lou was sick over Christmas. We talked a little bit about that. We usually talk about how was your time. I got a little bit of a bug here or there. We go to our doctor. We listen to what he has to say. If I'm not sure what's going on, I'm going to take my wife with me. I'm going to take my kids. I want to be involved in the decisions. Why would you ever go to a program that takes that out of the hands of the people and puts it in the hands of the government? People who don't have the relationship, don't understand what your hopes and dreams are, what your plans for the future are. It's not right. It's just not right. So Republicans have said, look, let's return it to what it's supposed to be. Let's put it back in the hands of the people. Let's put it in the hands of the folks that provide the services and the patients themselves, period. Let's make sure that they get taken care of, period. Let's not turn it into a government program that's so big, so hard to understand, can't even get through the regulations, and so expensive that most Americans now are scratching their heads and said, my goodness, I can't believe I bought this idea that it was going to be there for me. One of the biggest shocks that most people are getting, number one, you can't keep your doctor, you can't keep your health plan, which was promised to them. Number three, you can't afford it. And then the other part that I think is really is hard for people is they can't figure out what they're going to do with their future and who they're going to go to. That's bad. That's not America.
Lou, you have experience since this, another thing that the president said, at least I heard him say, that you can keep your own doctor and you can keep your own insurance. Is this correct?
Well, he went even further than that, Sam. He said if you like your health care plan, you can keep it,
right.
Period.
Right.
Now, the period means a lot to me.
Yeah.
Period means there's nothing else.
Right.
It's as simple as that, period. Mm-hmm. We learned that. We heard that all during school all the time. Mm-hmm. Our parents said that to us all the time. He also said if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor, period. This won't affect you. Sam, did you ever believe in your life that the lie of the year would come from a president of the United States? That was just voted the lie of the year, that they knew that that wasn't true, and that's how they sold this plan. Was it 5 million people have lost their health care insurance? In the last year, they're estimating that anywhere from 30 to 60 million more will lose their health care. What about if you like your health care plan, you can keep it, period? I just heard a story of somebody whose insurance was dropped because the plan was too good. It was a Cadillac plan, and the government said you can't have a Cadillac plan. That's not what the United States is about. That's not what this country was built on. That's not what our founding fathers said America was going to be about. This is not Robin Hood, where you're going to take from someone to give to someone else, and neither one of them really have a better opportunity in life. And that's what this is really about. We're going to have an opportunity. We tried. I voted over, as well as Mike, I voted over 40 times to dismantle, delay, do whatever we can to slow this down. It wasn't ready for prime time, but they were insistent on rolling this out. And when people see their premiums and see what their coverage is, I believe there's going to be sticker shock. We're going to have an opportunity, I hope, in the next election, and that's what I believe the next election will be about, whether or not the American people really want to go down this road that the president has taken us on. And
that's the scary thing that I think no matter whether you're Democrat or Republican, people should look at. I had a friend of mine who was 74, 75. He voted for Obama. I have people who voted for Obama because they didn't like Obama because he was too rich. Talk about logic, I don't understand. But the point is now, and I said to this 74-year-old lady, I said, all I pray is that you stay healthy. Okay, and the sad thing is going to be when they're getting a hit with this. But I talked about the media before, and I'm in the media. I know I get accused sometimes of having my cronies on all the time. Well, I can't help it that Lou is the congressman. He represents our area. I can't help it whether you're a congressman. I've had Congressman Cartwright on, and we have candidates who will be running. I had Dr. Moylan on, who's running for U.S. Congress. We have Matthew Dietz on. We bring people to explain this. The scary part is, Mike and Lou, is that the liberal press does not give the full story. And I'm happy to, well, I shouldn't say I'm happy because I never want to see something bad happen, but people will react. CNN has the lowest ratings in 20 years. At one time they beat CNN, and I'm not, only because, again, it's only one-sided. Why then, Mike and Lou, Fox ratings are going up higher all the time? Because they're both sides. How do you live with that nonsense when you see this, that you don't get that opportunity to have the other side, okay? How do you feel about that?
Well, and you're exactly right. Although I do think the American people are now starting to realize the way this is being played out, and a lot of them are realizing it's so tilted one way. You don't get the full picture. I do agree with you on Fox. It is fair and balanced. There's times I listen to people on there and say, listen, I don't agree with one thing they said, but at least they were on there bringing the argument up.
Exactly.
They had a chance to say it.
Exactly.
And while I may not agree with it, I champion the idea that it's America and everybody's allowed to say what they think and what they feel. That's the good part of it. But I think that as we watch this unwind, and the American people now are becoming, it's the old saying, fool me once, shame on me. Shame on you, or you fool me twice, shame on me. They're starting to realize, listen, we were told something, and because where we are in our lives, and Lou also, we built relationships over our lifetimes based on faith and trust. You could take a whole lifetime of building and destroy it with one careless act, one reckless act. I think what the American people are starting to see now is that this divide, this credibility that these folks need to have is evaporating, and they're not believing some of these folks. People who really, they used to get their news at night, right at dinner time, or maybe at 11 o'clock. They didn't have the 24-hour continuous loop.
That's right.
So they would listen, and they had great credibility, some of these folks that would come on and report the news, not report some type of an entertainment thing to drive people one way or the other. So it is hard. I think we all get frustrated. We put a message out every day. It's not always picked up by the mass media. It's picked up by certain people. We put the message out. We are doing that. I know people, when I go back home, say, you guys need to talk more about what's happening. And I tell people all the time, I said, we can talk about it all day long, and we will. But the other thing is, you also have to talk about it. You have to talk about it at your dinner table with your sons and daughters, with your friends and neighbors. You have to talk about it after Mass on Sunday. You have to talk about it when you go to have your little cup of coffee at the local coffee place. Sit down and talk about it. Talk about what's not going right and what you know to be true. And then take a look at what you're getting, the information you're getting, and make sure that you're getting both sides of the story. Because there's sometimes I look at it and say, you know what, part of this is right, and this is the part that I agree with, and part of it's not right, so I'm going to look into it and see if it's actually truthful. That credibility gap, we've got to narrow that back. The people who we represent have got to feel, when they put their head in the pillow at night, that Lou Barletta's there for them. I don't care if they're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Independent, that Mike Kelly is there to take care of you. Now, we represent an awful lot of people. They're not all registered the same way.
Sure.
They don't all vote the same way. In fact, some of them don't vote at all.
Which is sad.
But we're given the responsibility to go and speak for them.
And I totally agree with you when you're talking about the balance, okay? Combs on Fox. I love the guy. I disagree with him 90% of the time, but he's great. He puts that other factor, I don't know if you ever met him, but he's a nice person, but he's, ultra-liberal, and that's fine. But he at least presents it in a professional manner. On your website and on Lou's website, I don't think a day goes by that I don't get something from Lou on the email from Tim explaining what's going on, all right? And I'm sure all the other congressmen, I looked at your website and get in touch with me, call me, I'm here, et cetera. And sometimes people feel, well, you're too busy for them. I don't think that's the case. Lou, when you voted 42 times to repeal this. Where do you think this is going to go other than this election? So I heard on ABC the other night, okay, and again, I watch this, I try to give them the benefit of the doubt, and they're talking about this one lady who had cancer, and she loves Obamacare, and she got a rate it's now half her rate, and they interviewed her. Then they said, well, there are other people that are not getting what they want, but they focused on this one person, and you would think, oh, wow, this is great, okay? That's what I get upset about, okay? Not that I'm upset with it, just that they don't give the both sides. And so what really is happening now? How many people are getting turned? What are the true numbers we're looking at?
Well, I think what's going to happen, Sam, personally, is that this thing is going to collapse under its own weight. This whole system was built on trying to get young people to sign up, pay for insurance. Many young people feel they don't need it. They're young, they're healthy, they're starting out, and many don't. Their hopes were to get young people to sign up so that they could pay for other people who are going to be using the system. Young people aren't going to do that. They're not signing up. They're seeing what the premiums are. They're seeing what the costs are. They're simply not going to sign up. I believe this whole idea of Obamacare will collapse under its own weight, Sam. I don't think it can survive. So I actually believe that as we go on and people begin to see what this really means for their health care, that they're simply, many businesses are just going to pay a fine. They're going to find it's easier just to pay the fine than to employ, than to offer health insurance to my employees, and less people will be covered. There's another fact, the president said that this will keep people out of the emergency room. Delivering health care in an emergency room is much more costly than going to a physician. Harvard University just came out with a study that they have found that since the Affordable Care Act in Oregon, more people have actually gone to the emergency room. It's the opposite has happened. So when Nancy Pelosi said that we have to pass this to find out what's in it, we're finding out. As I pointed out, Sam, volunteer firefighters all across America are now being drugged into this, where they may actually, it may actually hurt public safety because of the Affordable Care Act.
I've said this to Lou a number of times, Mike. You said something about kitchen economics. It's such common sense sometimes. Now, do you mean to tell me that the other side, or whatever you call them, can't figure these common sense out, that you're going to have a government tell you who your doctor should be and what you should get? I mean, I just can't. There's a lot of intelligent people on the other side. I don't understand how they could allow this to happen when they see what you see, unless they're seeing something different. It's confusing to me, Mike.
Well, I think if you were to look at the two parties, if you look at the Republican Party, you say, you know what, this Republican Party is too fractured. They're constantly fighting with each other. And we do. We go into conference and we have some very heated debate. That was the design from the beginning. For whatever reason, and I can't tell you because I don't sit during their discussions with Democrats, they can have their arguments inside, but when they come out of the locker room, there's one message. They never, ever say that they're not happy. Now, Senator Baca says this is a train wreck. Every once in a while, you hear one of them that are running for election that knows that this is a key issue and they could get ousted.
Well, doing it
so
now.
They'll jump on that.
Yeah.
But the broad body are never going to go against the talking points that the administration puts out. I've never seen a group that will really turn their back on the people that sent them in order to stay with the people in Washington, D.C. that are driving a message no good. Listen, just doing the math on this is not sustainable. Now, our friends know it. They're not stupid.
Yeah,
they
I
know it,
can't
but they're
understand
afraid
it.
of losing an election as opposed to offering the protection that the American people deserve from a government that's gotten way too big, overregulates too much. They don't want to walk away from that. I just say, stand up for what you know is right. Stand up for what you believe. Stand up for the people who sent you, and stop taking that ridiculous line that the other party's feeding you, which is just so you can stay in office for what? Listen, if I can't go to my hometown, and get there during broad daylight, And so some people go home after dark and leave way before dawn. They don't want to see people. Listen, I go to the Walmarts, the Kmarts. I go on Main Street. I go to the churches. I go to the coffee shops. Same as Louis does here in Hazleton. I need to hear from those people because those people feel that we're too distant from them.
Yes.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
We are you, and you are us. We are mainstream America. We need to take back our country, It belongs to the people. The people do not work for the government works for the people. We've gotten so out of focus in the way this is supposed to be. Bigger government, more intrusive government, takes away more personal freedoms and liberties. That was never the design. So we got to bring it back home. We can do it. Listen, we're going to battle every day. We don't ever give up on this.
Mike, I've said this before. What color is this?
It's white.
Yeah. You talk to a liberal? No, that's not white. No, this is no. It's a little gray. I think it's no. This is white. Okay. See, remember the period? You know, you have your own. But you know, it reminds me of Animal Farm. You know, we're just going to change it a little bit, folks. I'm talking to Congressman Mike Kelly and Congressman Barletta, talking about a few things. We come back. Let's talk about Benghazi. Let's talk about economic growth. You know, they all talk a good game. Well, what are we going to do to try to get this economic growth? And you know, I sort of feel that people who are going to be running against or running for election will be saying, distancing themselves from Obama to a degree, because as popular opinions coming in, people losing their job and losing their insurances, there's a whole different ballgame. Stay with us, folks. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, special edition, folks. I have Congressman Mike Kelly from the 3rd Congressional District and Congressman Barletta from the 11th Congressional District discussing some things. If you missed the first part of this show, you know you can watch this show on our website, 24/7 ssptv.com. Okay, let's talk about Benghazi. It was an interesting thing. The New York Times came out, I think, about a little while ago about the fact that it was the video that caused the problem. It was the video. Okay, they did this major investigation. I'm talking to my good friend Dr. Greco, and I says, you know, Vic, it's interesting. I said, you know, that's you know, it's the video. And he says, Sammy, he said, do you know who's running, who may run for president? He said, what? He said, Hillary Clinton. Bingo. Hillary Clinton's going to run for president. Benghazi, well, we got to do something. This is my only, I don't know whether this is factual or not, but I would be thinking, here comes the stage already. They're saying, let's diminish what happened in Benghazi. Maybe it's the truth. How do you feel about that, Mike?
Well, so far it's been a great cover-up by the administration. The time that it happened, my cousin John's retired special ops guy, Navy SEAL. So I called John. I said, Johnny, what in the world happened last night? How did our kids, how did they lose their lives? How did our ambassador lose their lives? Why weren't you guys there? He goes, Mike, not my call. That comes from Department of State, Secretary of State. They're responsible. If they call us, we'll be there. I said, whoa, wait a minute. So you start to get some smell about this. Now, during the break we talked a little bit. I went through stacks of information, communications, coming out of Libya. Not from Ambassador Stevens, but Ambassador Kretz, who was there before Ambassador Stevens. He's saying, we've got to get out of Benghazi. This is crazy. This is a Wild West show. We're not safe here. Everybody had left. Everybody had left. The Red Cross had left. We are the last flag standing. They knew that this was a bad situation. They knew it was a bad situation. Now, Stevens gets there. He's scared there too. The night that he is assassinated or killed, he's meeting with a Turkish diplomat, has dinner with him, says goodbye to him about 8:30, and then about 9:15, 9:30, all heck breaks loose. Now, in our committee meeting, and Miss Lamb was there, Charlene Lamb was there. I'm listening to her testimony, and she says, you know, as we watched it in real time. Now, the light comes on. I said, wait, you watched this in real time? Oh, yes. We had the surveillance cameras. We could see what was going on. We didn't know what to do. You read through the communications and say, so was the answer really? Right before this happens, okay? Several attacks on the consulate, several attacks on diplomats. We pull out our special ops people. We replace them with $4 in our Libyan nationals. They're in the consulate. They're working. Stan Smith, who was the communications guy, killed that night, is tweeting to people, if we don't get these people out of here, they're going to kill us. They're taking pictures of the inside of the consulate. You look at this and say, there's no way in heck anybody's watching what's going on in Benghazi, putting our people in great danger and thinking that it's okay. And so when the Secretary of State says, what difference does it make? What difference does it make? We've got 4 dead American citizens, Madam Secretary, that we're depending on you for their safety and their security. Why did you pull our special ops people out and replace them with $4 in our Libyan nationals? Come on, give me a break. If there's anything, I mean, this smells. And there's an old saying around here, if it waddles like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. This is bad from the get-go. The video had nothing to do with it. They know that. It was a terrorist attack. It was carried out in a way that anybody who knows this says, oh my gosh, no, look at the weapons they used. Come on, this wasn't just some people walking around some night to decide to kill some Americans the way the Secretary of State explained it. So Ms. Clinton is trying to hide from her responsibility. She walked away from it. The question is, and you got to ask yourself, so why was the United States willing to put our ambassador in such great danger on that night, on September 11th? Why? What else could have possibly been going on that we would have diminished our security, put him in great danger? Why? Why? And we took aircraft out of that area that if they had to escape, they could have. We took aircraft out of there, and it wasn't even there. If they wanted to escape, they couldn't escape. The people that were there, when Doherty and Woods and those guys, the SEALs show up, they were there on a special assignment, not as, they were as private people coming in. They went against orders to stand on, to go and try and save the ambassador. You got to ask yourself, this isn't measuring up, and there's no way it's the YouTube, the 15-minute YouTube. Well, I don't care what the Times says. I mean, the Times says a lot of things, but they've got a big event.
You know, the sad truth is only 4 people lost their jobs over Benghazi. They're the 4 Americans who were killed. Yeah. Till today. Only 4 that lost their job for what all that went wrong there were the 4 Americans who were killed.
Those are the kind of things that I just think the American people just should be informed of.
You know, we've never interviewed the survivors of that night.
I don't think you will.
Well, they said, well, there's an ongoing investigation. Yeah. But look, I've watched this administration. It's very difficult. Again, you can subpoena. The Attorney General doesn't show up. You can find him in contempt. The Department of Justice won't do anything about it because their boss won't let them. Who's their boss? Eric Holder.
Until the media begins to understand and they start presenting these things and they begin to see this, because they all, to me, everything's based on approval ratings, polls, and that's why he'll come out and talk about the unemployment. He should extend employment, and those poor people, they won't eat, and these Republicans are bad again. Okay, and this is what you hear. And speaking about that. What is happening? I mean, he wants to extend that. Okay, so are you guys saying no, yes, or what? Lou,
well, there's a couple of things. First of all, Sam, it's going to cost $26 billion, and obviously, you've got to see how you're going to do it. I don't think there's anybody in Washington that doesn't want to see anybody who's down and out not get help. But is extending unemployment compensation beyond what their regular unemployment compensation really the help, as we talked before? Is getting somebody out of poverty? Is it keeping them on government programs the way to do it? Shouldn't we be focusing on getting them a job? Unemployment compensation equates to about minimum wage. Can't we do better for Americans by actually getting them a job, retraining people? Many people who are unemployed obviously may not find a job in the occupation that they had. That's just the facts of it. Why don't we come in and say, listen, we've got to get you retrained while you're not working. We've got to give you the tools to get a job again, to get back into the workforce, to do better than minimum wage, to actually be able to take care of your families. That's what we should be talking about. Not, again, this philosophy is to keep people in poverty by just keeping them dependent on government programs. And I think that's what we're at now. It's like, listen, we want to help people that need the help. But while we're helping them, the best way we can help you is to make you not dependent on the government, but dependent on yourself.
Yeah, because when I see, you'll show a family, and they can't eat, and you start getting tears in your eyes, and you figure, well, they're really bad people. They don't want to see these people, survive. So, Mike, what are you doing? What are you doing to help these people out? You talked about economic growth, and what are you guys doing?
Well, one of the things that we're looking at right now in Ways and Means is a pro-growth tax reform. And if you talk to most Americans, they would say overwhelmingly, listen, it's too complicated. I can't figure it out. Somebody has to do my taxes for me. Well, it's a 78,000-page code. Last year, Americans spent $168 billion preparing taxes, not tax payments, $168 billion tax preparation, about 7 billion hours to get that done. So my goodness, do you think it's difficult to figure out your taxes? Well, heavens, yes, it is. What we want to do is lower the tax rates, wider base, with the government picking winners and losers and who gets the breaks and who doesn't. Eliminate the loopholes. Now, give some people the look into the future, say, okay, now I have some certainty of what's going to happen. Now I can go ahead and make those investments. I'm not going to stay on the sidelines anymore because I'm not sure where it's going. If you're not sure what you're doing, most people will just stop and wait. That's what we've done to America's employers. What I think we really need to do is give them that look into the future that says, yes, you can go ahead and do this. And as Lou said, I would like to see people, the benefits of being employed have got to outweigh unemployment benefits. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And I just think most men and women in America, when they wake up in the morning, they throw their feet out over the side of the bed and stand up, they need a job to go to so they can put food on the table, clothes in the backs of their children, prepare their kids for the future. Lou talked about education. We've got to get job skills that fit the jobs that are ready today. We've got to get our people ready for the jobs that are available, not the jobs that used to be here. Get them ready for that. Having a purpose in life is the most important thing any of us can have. That allows you to have the hopes and dreams. That allows you to have the America that our parents came here for, and why they prepared us. So a lot of this is just talk about, well, we need to do this or do that. Listen, we'll take a look at every single program out there. But if the program doesn't give you a path out of where you are, if it doesn't lift you out of where you are, but only keeps you where you are right now, and it doesn't allow you to ever dream anymore or to have a true change in your life, that's a bad program. That's not American.
You know, so these people are going to go to work. They're going to get on a bus. And you have the bus driver who is driving them. And now some people want to hit the bus driver and make his job difficult because he's driving them to work, okay? And that's what's happening with a lot of small businesses out there. I mean, I hear this, I'm for middle-class Americans, and we're here to help the middle class. And I want to tell you, I pray for the president every day. He's in my prayers. I mean that sincerely. I've said that from day one because I think he needs, anyone who sits where you guys, you need prayers. But I have a good friend of mine who is a liberal, and he just thinks this guy is still great. And I said, well, he lied from the beginning, and he's still lying. And I respect the office, and I would never want anything harm to come to this guy. But I just think it's just beyond. This guy is just way out. I mean, he speaks very well, but yet, what's happening? Has he accomplished anything?
Well, things haven't gotten better for people who the president claimed he wanted to help. As we said, you know, people have stopped even looking for work. We talk about the unemployment rate being at 7%. Sam, it's not 7%, it's over 10%. We don't count people who stop looking for work anymore as if they're not unemployed.
You know, it's interesting, Mike and Lou, because you're saying something. You talk about, you know, the economy, and their administration saying the economy is improving. Well, in our area here, there are stores closing. The retail sales were down. You know, there are people losing their jobs. There are people are now on part-time. People do not have insurance. And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm talking about our area from Pine Grove up to Kingston. Okay, I don't know what's happening in the rest of the state. I don't know what's happening in Western Pennsylvania, but I do know that there's stores that have been closing because they're just not available. So I don't know. Am I reading the wrong thing? You know, what's happening in Western Pennsylvania?
No, I think we're seeing the same thing in Western Pennsylvania that we're seeing here. The workforce participation is down so far. And as Lou said, we don't count people who stop looking for work as being unemployed. Mm-hmm. A lot of those jobs that used to be available have gone, and they're never going to come back. But again, making investments in the right type of opportunities that, you know you're going to take a risk, but let's make sure that the idea of winning is a lot greater than losing. We can do that. The private sector can do it. The private sector will have to lead on this. That's who will lift us out. That's who hires people. That's who keeps them
very quickly, let's talk about energy. Okay,
sure.
We've been fighting this thing. I see the gas prices. I see all these prices that they shouldn't even be near the prices they're at. Okay, we have coal. Lou's talked about this zillion thing with John Rich with his plant, and you know, we got about 3 minutes left. Mike, where are we going with energy, and how do we reduce our cost?
Well, listen, we can be energy independent. We know this, okay? We know, listen, it's abundant, it's accessible, it's affordable. And I'm talking about the fossil fuels. Marcellus and the Western Pennsylvania, great opportunity. Other things that we have in this country that people don't put on the list of our assets. We got 1/6 of the world's fresh water sitting right above us. The Great Lakes are there. And we've got tillable soil. We got more production per acre than any place else in the world. So if you have your own energy, if you have water that you can drink, and you have food that you can eat, you don't have to rely on anybody else. My goodness, and if you can do it at a lower rate per unit than anybody else, do you think that would put you in a better position competitively? We should be dominating global economies right now. We shouldn't be just trying to play catch up or hoping that people are going to be there with us. We can do it, but it's going to take a strategy to get there. And I'm afraid right now that that's not the strategy. The strategy is not about energy independence, about the next election. We've got to look at where the Lord has put us. We have gotten so many gifts from God that we're not taking advantage of right now. We can do it. When your energy cost goes down, your cost of labor, you can afford to pay people more and still keep yourself competitive in the market because everything goes into the price of the final product, not just the cost of labor, but also the raw materials and the development of it. We can compete anywhere in the world, but we have to sit down and say, you know what, that's That's what we're shooting for. That's our goal. We can do it. We have to do it together.
Lou, do you think it's going to ever happen? I mean, how many years have we been talking about this?
Well, I think it has to happen, Sam. I think the American people are at the point now where it's it's the survival of their own families right now. People are down and out, and we've got to we talk about government creating jobs. Government doesn't create any jobs, Sam. It's moms and pops all across America. Somebody who has an idea and goes out. We've taken away the entrepreneurial spirit of this country by making it so hard for people to even take that chance, to take that risk. And then if you do, if you take that risk and you're willing to gamble everything that you've ever worked for, everything you have, and you become successful, this government's going to say, you didn't build that. You didn't do that. We're going to take it from you and we're going to give it to someone else. That's not capitalism. That's not how this country was founded. We've got to get back to the basics again, Sam.
Boy, I tell you, I feel sorry for these young college kids. I taught an entrepreneur class at King's College, and that's what you say. You worked hard. You work and you sacrifice. And when you do become successful, they want to take it from you because then they want to distribute it, which is fine. You're all for helping. Congressman Mike Kelly, it's been a pleasure. Really, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Congressman Barletta, of course, you're no stranger to the Sam Lesante Show. I appreciate you getting the Congressman, but I wish the both of you the best, as well as I wish the entire Congress, whether you're Democrat or Republican, everyone has to work together, and hopefully through a lot of prayers and things will change this year for the better. For the country and get your approval ratings to come up so people can believe in sincere people who are there working. Congressman Mike Kelly, folks, I'm telling you, Google him. Go to his website. Go to Barletta's website. For that matter, any of your congressmen, go to their website and you'll see a lot more of what's happening and how they're doing whatever they can, and they're available to you. My email, sam@ssptv.com, and I always welcome the other side, as you know, folks. And the show can be seen anytime, anywhere in the world, 24/7 on ssptv.com. We'll see you next time.